Today, I am chatting with Cindy, a social 7 and an ENTP, and I'm very excited. This rounds out my collection of 7s, so I'm really curious to hear your perspective on creativity. Um, so that's let's dive in. That's my first question. What does creativity mean to you?
Creativity to me is really broad. It is from seeing things anew, thinking about things more in new ways, and it also has the expression of, being there's as I'm talking, I'm thinking that there's an authenticity to it, that it comes from within, and whether that is artistic or writing expression or just being able to think anew. It's just coming from within instead of without. But there also is that creativity of connecting dots in new ways and just seeing new, um, different ways of putting things together.
Mm. And just, what are some of the ways in which you express your creativity, either personally or professionally?
that so as we started the conversation, I said I don't feel like I'm in a really creative space at this moment in time. Uh, the part of my creativity, for better or worse, is that I love to I love being emergent, I would say. So as I facilitate meetings, I really get joy and have fun, and I think create value from seeing what comes about in that meeting. And that's a creative process versus having it all planned out to the nth degree. So that's one aspect of it. And the second aspect is when I'm learning things, I just do not read one book and go with it. I mean, I'll read a book, I'll listen to things, I'll think about past things I've learned, and then I'd have to kind of put it together in sometimes a visual map or just my own writing it up in some kind of way that makes sense to me and is my way of thinking about it. But it can be, and in home life, I cannot follow a recipe. I have to, look up 3 or 4 recipes and then make up whatever comes about from those 3 or 4 recipes. So those are some of the ways that creativity happens for me.
I totally
Uh,
resonate with that synthesizing piece because I can read a bunch of things, but I can't, not so much with a recipe, but just follow someone else's way. Like I was doing I do bullet journaling, but I couldn't follow the way of bullet journaling. I sort of had to take it and then create my own version because I just can't follow someone else's version.
yes, yeah, and sometimes it's not the most efficient way, but I feel like I learn a lot in that process.
Mm.
And the efficiency comes about by, um, you know, I what was it the other day? I love finding new uses for things, that might make something more efficient. And I am having trouble remembering exactly what I did, but it could be, when you're traveling or doing something around the house, and then it's analogous for work, but just going, aha, like a, a use that wasn't intended for the tool, but being
Mm.
able to apply it to something else. I enjoy that. And then there are the other day, with my Enneagram group, we did this collage process, and
Oh.
it was really fun. And that was something that I loved because there were no rules except for, the size of the canvas and the medium we had to work with. But that was really fun. And it had been a while since I'd done any kind of artistic endeavor, and I forgot how much I love doing that. And when I was a child, I was very artistic and used to win awards for just, like, I think when I was in first grade, in a I did this mixed medium kind of artistic project that everybody else was just using one medium, but I ended up using 3 or 4 and won an award for that. So again, it's kind of taking what's out there and mixing it together in a
Together.
new way.
No, I really like that. And I was thinking about what you said about efficiency, and I was like, well, I think sometimes for sevens, efficiency is whatever process that gets finished, that actually makes it into a routine and makes it happen. Because, yeah, sometimes that is half the battle, at least for me.
It is, I guess maybe for sevens because, there can be times where I'll procrastinate, and I'm finding Chat GPT is a fun. I'm finding that as a creative process because I
Hmm.
can throw something into Chat GPT as a thought for something I have to do, and then we just have this kind of creative conversation. It spawns the next question and the next question and the next question. And then all of a sudden I can write whatever I have to write, whether it's a note or a speech or something, or design a workshop that I need to do. So that is somewhat of an iterative process, but it can be efficient because it's kind of, I don't know, it's sparking pretty quickly the next thought and the next thought and the next thought.
Yeah, so it sounds like a great creative partner.
Yeah, I think it can be.
Mm.
Have you found that with Chat GPT?
I used it for a little bit and then I sort of stopped, but I've heard from other sevens that it's much harder to work from a blank slate, that having something to bounce off makes that
Yeah,
creative process go a bit faster.
that's a great way to put it. And that when I was in, I mean, I love coaching in a group environment. This kind of this group that I facilitate because it's so collaborative. And in the startup world that I was in before becoming a coach, it was super collaborative. And I think that it's not only brainstorming, but also even to making decisions and putting things into motion for execution. Having partners and collaborators is part of the creative process that I really enjoyed.
Mm.
And so as a social seven, that might be part of it too. It's just, working for others, with others, for others,
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
spawns that creativity.
And so, talking about what supports you to be creative, obviously having people to bounce things off or working collaboratively, but what else supports you to be creative?
I'd say space and time. Well, not always time, because sometimes a deadline actually
Mm.
makes me be creative to get the thing done. But but I think space. I really enjoy it when I do have few constraints and I can just kind of think about things. Like I said, think about things freshly, and have the space to kind of play with all those different elements that we were talking about, pulling the dots together,
Mm.
synthesizing.
Yeah, time to think
And
and process.
yeah, now one thing I've been working on as a head type is really giving space for the heart and the gut to play a part in all of this.
Hmm.
Um and I think that really can bring a new element of creativity to the table, is bringing head, heart, and gut to bear, or
Mm.
intuition.
Mm. Absolutely.
uh,
Especially, I found that using the body can help when I feel stuck.
I was just going to say, when I need to be creative, for more of a introspective, like, okay, self-authoring kind of, what do I uh, want to be at this point in time, then taking a hike or being out in nature, doing something physically and in nature is really a great foundation for being creative.
Which I think leads me to my next question, which is about creative blocks and when you feel, stuck in some way. So, what, helps you get through those?
The blocks for me come from when I start thinking about what other people might think or judge. Um, and all of a sudden, I might get blocked from that. I think that's probably the biggest block, that kind of stifles the true authentic
Mm.
expression or and creative expression. And so when I get there, it might be kind of like a triggered state or getting reactive and shutting down, part of the process. So just being able to recognize that, catch it, catch it in the, happening, and being
Mm.
able to, step back and decide to reframe it. So reframing is one of our, or one of my gifts. It comes pretty easily. So if I can catch myself being in that shutdown mode and worrying too much about external things, then I can reframe.
Yeah, it's useful how, we can see when our personality is both working against us and use parts of it to help it work with us.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I do think reframing is part of is another aspect of creativity, being able
Mm.
to, see different perspectives and then be at choice at, which perspective do I want to be coming from. And so, I do value that part. I can see where reframing gets in the way when I shut down, maybe empathy or something like that, because I want to just fix something or, you know, problem solve too quickly. But in the creative process, I think it can be great.
Mm. And so I'm curious, how has knowing that you're a social seven changed or shaped your relationship with creativity or creative expression? Has it maybe?
Hmm. I think what it maybe ties into what I just said is um, that need to be seen as good or uh, in service for others. That can't. I sometimes I'll regard the social part. I'll regard everybody else's needs and wants and desires over my own, and that can shut down the that space for that creative process.
Mm.
Um, so I think that's probably and I can certainly get spread too thin as a social seven, and the the gluttony definitely shows up in uh, the seeking stimulation and having so too many dots to bring together in that synthesizing mode. So seeing that, and then uh, yeah, being able to step back and be more discerning and asking myself, questions that will help, um, know what to say no to and let go of and where to focus is, a helpful remedy for all of that.
Mm. It really focusing and saying no and knowing when to create a container, I think.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, so, when I say space, it's like, oh, I don't want any constraints. I like the freedom. But realizing that then I said earlier, I was like, oh, but deadlines can be really helpful. So some constraints, like knowing I only had this, this one square canvas, that was helpful versus,
mm.
being able to start completely from scratch. So yeah, having some container, some constraints, and best yet having self-imposed constraints, so that I feel like I'm, the I guess the master of the ship is good, feels good.
Yeah, and I love the collage. It's gorgeous. Um, and I, in terms of deadlines, I think it's really important. So I find if someone's imposing a deadline on me, I have real issues with it. But if I create my own deadline, I can actually use that to help me get things done um,
Hmm.
in a way that someone else telling me to do it may not, work. It's that little rebellious piece.
Yes, yeah, I can feel that resentment that comes up when other people are imposing time frames on me, and then when I have my own, uh, that can definitely be beneficial. And
Mm.
and I think that having, I think time. I'm still figuring out my relationship with time, uh, but time constraints, while they don't always feel good, they are beneficial. I
Mm,
mean, I could probably waste a lot of time if I didn't have time balance.
yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things to wrangle with. So, last question, which creation, personal or professional, are you most proud of?
I guess we could argue whether it's a creation or not, but the first thing that comes to my mind is my kids, my family.
Mm,
Um, I do think relationships are creations also. Um, the relationships that I've created in my life are the things I value most. I also value the home that my husband and I have created together. That's the homes have been kind of fun, creative processes, um, and I think the life that we've created. We a few years back, 8 years ago, we decided to move from California to the mountains and just have love that outdoor lifestyle, and figured out how I could create a situation where, this is before COVID and all the remote work. So I created a situation where I could work remotely, fly to the Bay Area once a month and see family and friends and do my group work. And so I really felt like that was actually a pretty creative process to,
mm,
uh, kind of listen to my heart and my intuition about where we wanted to live at this point in our lives, and be able to run with that and create a lifestyle that works for work and family and ourselves.
mm. And thank you for saying your kids and your relationships, because I think sometimes we overlook those as creative processes, as things we do have to intentionally create and cultivate to come into existence and to maintain and to, all of the things that make relationships. So thank you.
Yeah. I remember when I first did a chakra meditation years ago, being like, oh, orange and creativity, that center, that chakra really is me. That resonated as like, ooh, of all those, that one's me. And then it was so interesting to, kind of hear more meditation teachers talk about that chakra as the relationship chakra. And I was like, well, wait, that's in your heart. And so anyway, it was kind of fun to play around with it from that angle, and
Mm,
land on, kind of getting that tie-in of creativity and relationship.
no, I love it. I love it. Well,
So,
thank you so much for sharing your perspective on creativity.
so thank you for taking the time to ask me those great questions. That was fun to